Hey baddies, on this episode of Called to Be Bad, I talk with Sarah Augustine and Sheri Hostetler about their recent book, So We and Our Children May Live, Following Jesus in Confronting the Climate Crisis. We talk about their book and also what it means to do holistic decolonization work. So that involves knowing what colonization is and what decolonization work can look like in regards to the climate and the environment. What would it mean to change our imagination for what it looks like to live on this planet? The book is fantastic. Sheri and Sarah are just amazing, incredibly inspirational and smart, and I really hope you enjoy this episode. Just so you know, I've stopped including guest bios in the beginning of the episode, and I have instead copied and pasted their full bios in the description. So if you want to know more about the guests, make sure you look in the podcast description, in the podcast show notes, or in the YouTube video description, and you'll get their bio, you'll get other resources and other links, anything the guests mention, and also like links to their work and social media, etc. So make sure you check out those descriptions. They have lots of good information. For your bad homework for this week, go ahead and check out the Patreon. But if you're not ready to sign up and be a full patron and support the podcast with your money, there is apparently a way to be a free member on Patreon, and I think that just means you'll get an email when I post something on Patreon that is open for anybody, is free to see. So even if you're not ready to, become a patron and support monthly, you can still go check out Patreon and become a free patron. And who doesn't like free stuff? I mean, I do. Okay, enjoy!
And the fact that 80 or 85% of the minerals needed to power the green economy, meaning to build our electric cars, our solar panels, etc., are located on or near Indigenous lands.
Okay. 1, 2, ready, go.
Welcome to the Called to Be Bad podcast. My name is Mariah Martin, and I feel called to be bad. It turns out I'm not the only one. Join us as we dig into all things bad, scandalous, deviant, the stuff that makes good church folks squirm in the sanctuary. Why? Well, because sometimes the scandalous is spiritual, deviant is divine, and bad is beautiful. Say yes to the call, and let's see what holy trouble we get into today. Institutions, and then when we talked a little bit, you had said, like, I've graduated to a knife, like my sharpness, my sting has increased, like the stakes are higher, and I thought that was so funny. Not funny.
Your words, Mariah. I do think of myself as being the knife, and Sheri, my dear friend, colleague and friend, is the hug. She's the hug.
Ooh. People are like bleeding out, and Sheri's like, come here, bring it in, come here, I'll make it all right.
Oh, I hope I'm not too much. I mean, what are we supposed to do? Comfort the, I can't even remember that phrase. What are we supposed to do?
Afflict the comfortable, comfort the oppressed.
I hope I'm not too, undoing of your sharp and necessary words and actions, Sarah.
I don't mean it that way at all. I just mean in terms of, it's like, I don't know. I just respect you so much, Sheri, and your style as a peacemaker. You make way in lots of contexts that would be impossible for me to go.
So I heard someone say that people are either a cupcake or a bran muffin. So like
bran muffin?
Yeah, we have bran muffin and cupcake. Like, you need both. There are times for both.
It's so funny because I actually dislike cupcakes in real life, but maybe I am the cupcake. Can you believe it? I'd much rather have a bran muffin.
Yeah, I think I would too. Okay, we're going to talk about, believe it or not, we are going to talk about decolonization work. But before we get into that, and Sarah and Sheri's wonderful book, I'm curious what you all are drinking today.
Well, I was drinking chai tea, but then I finished it and then I dumped some water in here because
Okay.
that's what I'm drinking now.
Oh my
So,
gosh.
and
I was so scared you're going to pour that on your computer.
on my microphone, it would be very something that I would do. I'm drinking out of a beautiful mug that a woman named Janet in my church gave me.
Can you describe it for people listening?
The mug is, I think it was made in Portugal, and it's blue and white with these beautiful hand painted drawings on it, and in the middle is kind of like a red rose, I guess you'd call it.
And the handle is unique. It has like a thumb rest.
That's a very fancy. You're right. There is a thumb rest there. I will say the handle is not very helpful when the mug is hot, but so it's pretty rather than functional.
Yeah. Aesthetics are important.
No,
Yeah.
What did you say?
Did you say just like me?
Unfortunately, people on the audio only couldn't see what I was doing with my face when I said that. But anyways.
But I like it though. I identify as pretty rather than functional. That's good.
That's so true. But anyways, go ahead.
And Sarah, what do you have today?
So I have half decaf, half caffeinated coffee with oat milk. And my mug is a fairly functional mug, as you can see. It was a gift to me from my stepdaughter, Casey. And when it came to me, it had a chip in it. And so that's the kind of thing that I love. It was like this mug had a life and a character before it ever came to me. It's a tall mug.
Yeah.
And it's pinstriped. It's kind of a mustard colored.
I like that the handle is only on the like top, I don't know, half, third of it. Like that's kind of unique.
Yeah.
That's cool.
There's
the chip. That makes me think of Chip from Beauty and the Beast.
Mm-hmm.
And I have straight up coffee. Some days when I film in the evenings, I have not coffee, and I'm sorry that it's boring every time I'm like coffee. But I enjoy drinking coffee during these interviews. And I picked my Colorado mug, and it's purple and it has trees on it. And I'm pretty sure my mom gave it to me. And I picked this mug because Colorado and the mountains are where I fell in love with creation and with Earth. And we will be talking a lot about the environment and the Earth and creation and the creator. And so I thought that was appropriate. It's also like a very good, like hefty mug. I actually prefer to drink tea in this mug because you can put a lot more water in it. But yeah, today we have coffee. Okay, so we are going to be talking about decolonization work, and usually on the podcast we start with definitions, and we will get to talking about your book, which is called "So We and Our Children May Live." I almost said leave. Oh man, that is the opposite of what we're trying to do. You're like, actually, this is a book about going to Mars.
Yes. Us and Jeff Bezos.
Yeah. We're leaving this planet. It all is doomed, and we're going to Mars. And no, so we and our children may live. But first, how do you? And you can each take turns, or Sheri, Sarah, if you want to pick. How do you define decolonization? And it doesn't have to be the perfect dictionary definition. Just like how you most commonly referred to the word, maybe in your book or in life.
Okay, so I don't have a definition in front of me, so I'm going to ramble for a minute. So from my point of view, settler colonialism is when, which is from my point of view, the way we live now in what is now called the United States. It's when there is a society or societies and civilization that exists, and then another society comes in over the top of it and tries to eradicate it. So it's that is settler colonialism. And so in every facet of life, in the laws and policies for sure, but also in culture, in media, in symbols, in the way we worship. The settler society tries to erase and eradicate the society that already existed and pretend that there is no other society. So that is settler colonialism. So from my point of view, decolonization is challenging those processes at every level. So we tend to think about colonization as something that happened once. That's not the way it feels to Indigenous peoples who are under the pall, I guess, of settler colonialism, because my culture, my society still exists. And so challenging the forces of colonization means decolonizing theology, decolonizing culture, decolonizing laws and policies, which means to actually dismantle systems of oppression. So for me, decolonization is dismantling systems of oppression. And I would go on to say that this is just not the case just for Indigenous peoples, but for all vulnerable peoples, historically displaced peoples, historically oppressed peoples who are still facing the systems of colonization that are ongoing, such as African American communities and Asian communities and migrant communities, all are facing this hegemony. Ooh, that's $1 million word. This sort of oppression of empire.
Yeah. Sheri, would you like to add to that?
Well, I think that the only thing I would add is that in the book, what we're saying is that the logic of colonization, which really is this ever expanding wealth accumulation for individuals, and also the logic of extraction, which means that you basically look at the earth and its even the word resources is actually an extractive word. I use it, but I just want to say it actually is an extractive word. You look at the earth for what it can give you in service to wealth accumulation. You actually look at other people also in terms of what they can give you in terms of wealth accumulation, and you extract that value from it with no thought as to whether that earth is sacred and inviolable, like it should not be violated in that way, or that person is also sacred and inviolable. I'm not even sure I'm saying that word right. Or over whether actually that extraction is even sustainable over the long term. It's like, let's go in there, use what we need right now, because we want to get our dopamine hit right now from the wealth that we're going to accumulate from this, or from the goodies we're going to get from this. And now let's move on to the next place that we can extract from. But, what we say is so not only do we extract, but when we extract, we also pollute. And we just shove all the pollution. All extraction causes enormous amounts of pollution. Gold mining is horribly polluting. We just also shove that pollution right back into the earth or into the bodies of people.
Yeah, can you break down, because this concept of extraction, and you talk about reality with the big R versus a little r, that like something shifted, something clicked in my brain when you talked about that. So can you break that down in very basic or give an example of what that looks like, and how that is like kind of the foundation for colonization work and life within empire?
Go ahead, Sheri.
Well, we contrast reality with a capital R versus reality with a small r in the book. And that is a big theme. That is the theme of the book in some ways. Big R reality, and I'm going to use Sarah's wonderful words here. The reality is we live within a closed system of mutual dependence. Closed system. This is ecological and biophysical reality. This is not something we just made up. You can talk to any scientist who knows something about, who understands ecology, And they will, of course, assert that this is true. We live within a closed system of mutual dependence. It's not like there's only so much earth to go around, and there's only so much earth we can pollute so there's only so much earth we can use up and only so much earth we can pollute before we actually reach the limits of being able to do that. And what one does within one system, one country, one group, whatever it does within this system affects everything else within the system. It's a complex system. So this is reality. And, we are through the fields, honestly, indigenous cosmologies have largely recognized this for a very, 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 very long time. But it's only in the West within the fields of system complexity science, system dynamics that we're coming to understand, ecology. These are all kind of concepts in the West that have really come into fruition in the last 50 years. It's only like that we now are scientifically starting to actually be able to wrap our heads around this whole reality. So that Indigenous people have been knowing for a very long time. So we are waking up. I would say those of us in the middle of the Western imperial society are waking up to the reality of the capital R reality. The reality we live in with the lowercase r is this extractivist, growth-oriented mindset. We live within an economy that has to grow 2 to 3% per year or it will collapse onto itself. And when it doesn't grow to that degree, and many people want it to grow more, there's all sorts of reasons why it starts collapsing. So we have actually structured our economy around the need for perpetual growth, which means perpetual extraction, which means perpetual pollution of the environment. And this is the reality that we think is real. And basically, it's not. And eventually, reality, what is illusory, crumples into itself, I think is what we're saying. And anyways, Sarah, please add on what you want to add on to that.
I just appreciate that, Sheri, the way that you laid that out, because it sounds so much more, it sounds very legitimate. I just appreciate that. So for me, the little reality R is the society I grew up in as an assimilated person. It's a society Mariah and Sheri, we all grew up in together, which says, hey, your value as a person is in what you can achieve and accumulate. So your ambition, Mariah, Sheri, is to be as rich as you can be, or, if not rich in money, then accomplishments. But aside from riches, which Mennonite people don't talk about riches, what you need to do to be responsible, and I put air quotes around responsible for people who aren't watching, because I'm a woman of a certain age and I still use air quotes. To be responsible, you have to have a 401k. You need to have your own home paid off. You need to be able to have this wealth to put your children through college, and because you don't want to be a burden to them, you need to have your retirement all figured out. This is what it means to be a responsible person. And all of that is dependent upon extraction. It's an extractive logic. It says, hey, you know what? My 401k is invested in oil extraction. It's invested in gold extraction. This is destroying the ability for other humans in other parts of the world to live. But that's okay, because I need it to feel safe in my retirement. I need it to feel safe for my kids to have college tuition. That thinking is at the heart of extractive logic, because it justifies why it's okay for the small amount of people to have what we believe that we need in order to have, a good life, what we consider a good life. And we're willing to hawk the birthright of future generations to have it. It is taxation without representation. We are exacting a tax on the unborn by consuming at this level. And ordinary people, and by that I mean, I'm talking now to the audience here, middle class, upper middle class, well-educated Mennonite people and other kinds of Christian people are creating this. And we must stop. My ambition, I'm not trying to be all like fancy better or anything, but my ambition when I retire is to have a lifestyle where I can live on Social Security. I have no 401k. My beautiful child understands, we talked to his advisor yesterday, that there is no money for college. If he wants to go to college, we got to figure out scholarships or whatever. That's, as a person, I'm going to launch him and give him everything I can. But what can I do? I am not willing to sacrifice the lives of Indigenous people across the world so that I can give that. Sorry, more air quotes for people who aren't watching, because I'm willing to live in a low income apartment, a studio apartment on Social Security as a retired person. Why do I need more than that? I don't. Straight up, I do not. What wealth can I give that I need to accumulate that I'm going to give to my child? The wealth that my child needs is a functioning world. The wealth that my child needs is my time and attention now, my partnership with him, my accompaniment in figuring out, helping him to figure out who he is and what his life trajectory is. That's what I have to give as a parent. It is not my job to solve financial ills of the future and to destroy the world in so doing. I refuse to do that. And I am on the stump across the country telling Christians to knock it off. This is stupid. It's unsustainable. And you want to know what else it is? It's sin. We do not talk about sin very much, but you want to know what this is? This is sin. It is evil, and it is not reality. Reality, closed system of mutual dependence. That's reality.
Mm-hmm. We don't get shipments of water and food and earth and minerals from Mars. Like, this is all it is. If we blow up a mountain, there's not going to be a new one that comes and replaces it. Again, something shifted in my mind when I read in your book that we have an insidious us against them mentality. We have to figure out our own, take care of our own, because anyone outside of us, of our bubble, is a threat to our safety and security. So, but then once we have us taken care of, okay, then maybe we can help other people. Maybe then they are less of a threat. And that was just like, yeah, because you said like good Mennonites who are supposed to be, like altruistic, kind, or whatever, saying, well, I have to put my kids through college. What am I going to do?
And Sarah, I'm wondering if you, because I'm also aware that you talk a lot about, like, what does it mean to address this systemically? I'm not saying, Sarah, that you're not calling people to individual action, but really, in the end, you're actually not calling people to individual action.
Thank you, Sheri, for bringing that up. You're absolutely correct. Because, because in this society that we're all a part of, Mariah, Sheri, all of us assimilated people, all of us who have been assimilated from some other culture to this dominant culture here, are made to believe that as individuals, life begins when we're born and it ends and life ends when we die. And that's life, right? It's the span of our lifespan. And we also believe that that our individual action is the main story. You know what I'm saying? Like, the plot is all around us. We're the center, and we're doing whatever we do. And individualism is embedded in this system that we are a part of, that is extractive by nature, in the ways that you've been describing, Mariah, that it's a struggle for scarce resources. And so I need to do my level best to compete with everyone else to make sure I have what I need. And this individualism is a fallacy. It's actually an illusion. It's not real. Human beings are collectivist by nature. Our selective advantage in evolutionary terms, the thing that helps us to survive as a species, is our willingness and ability to cooperate. some say that our big brains, that our big brains, that's our selective advantage, but those big brains are actually created so that we will cooperate, because that's the only way we can survive. So we are actually able to interpret the feelings of the person across from us and their intentions. Like, that's actually what our big computer brain is designed to do, is to collaborate and cooperate. Because look at these silly bodies we have, 2 legs on the savannah running down a lion. Come on, we don't have any hair except for these little strange spots. And I want to tell you, I live on a cattle ranch 18 years. You cannot outrun a cow. We're like, oh, cows are so foolish and slow. Let me tell you something. They're way faster than a human. You're going to chase down a cow? You could not catch a pregnant cow on your best day. An old, decrepit pregnant cow. Forget it. You are done. The only way we're going to be able to survive in this land and world is to collaborate and cooperate. And individualism is a lie. Look at the room around you. How many people does it take to even keep that room heated, lit, built that room? Like, individualism is a fallacy, which is a fancy way, academic way of saying a lie. We are a collective. The systems that are in place, these systems of death that are based on extractive logic, were created by people, and they have to be dismantled by people. Individual, it's not like a superhero cartooners like, oh, the evil overlord created this. There were groups of people who created what we now live with, and groups of us, it's going to take groups of us collectively to unmake it. And we have to do that. And one of the primary questions I have for the church, the Christian church writ large, that's all of us, Mennonites and beyond. Where are we? Where is our voice as institutions, as humans, but also as institutions? We have to organize and hold our institutions accountable to be the voice in the world of reason and justice. And that's not what our institutions see themselves as, I think, or maybe they see themselves that way, but that's not what they're doing. They're not standing for something else. And in our society, in our laws and policies, it takes collective energy and collective movement to change those things. One of the things we talk about in the book, if we have climate change, we're facing climate change, individuals recycling in their homes is not going to fix that. If all of us put solar panels on the roofs of our homes and our churches, so we have 100% solar, we're only going to deal with 20% of oil and gas that we're consuming. That's 20% is a lot, a fifth, but that's not, you know what I mean? That does not address transportation, which is the primary source of oil and gas, primary consumption of oil and gas. Just getting an electric car, man, you are still taking electricity out of the grid. Putting solar panels on your house, we have to have collective action for real policy change that's reflective of reality, not the big R reality, not the small R reality. And we can do that. And that's what the coalition is designed to help us do.
Yeah.
And I think in the book, Sarah, you're also calling people to basically listen to Indigenous systems thinkers. And we actually have to, I feel like we have to do a couple things at once. We have to change existing laws and policies to conform with capital R reality, but we also actually have to imagine a new system. We have to imagine, I've started to use the word paradigm activist that I heard from someone else. I didn't come up with it, but I think we're asking both at once. Like, and what does it mean to imagine a new system that is not built on endless growth and thus endless extraction? And there are people who are doing that. This is not pie in the sky. It's actually actively being worked on. And I think that there is a lot of, there's so much Indigenous wisdom there among Indigenous thought leaders that we have to listen to, because our survival actually is going to depend on it and does depend on it.
Yeah, I think we say Indigenous thought leaders, Indigenous leaders that are grounded in their cosmology, because Indigenous peoples around the world are living in systems now that are grounded in reality with a capital R. So we don't have to come up with a technological fix. There are people alive right now who know how to do this. And something that I find to be really interesting is the land protectors and the water protectors are these small groups of indigenous people who were standing up to empire and saying, we are going to protect our sacred land and we're going to protect our water, because they're living in a different, they're living in a cosmology that favors reality with a capital R. And it's possible for Christians to step into that struggle with indigenous people, led by indigenous people, in a sibling relationship with indigenous people, not by giving charity to the less fortunate, but by saying my survival is bound up with your survival, and we're here. Here we are, fresh horses, so to say.
Yeah, I appreciate that you draw us beyond, because oftentimes in this in the environmental conversation, it gets individual versus systems kind of bump up against each other. And I've heard, you can recycle all you want, but a lot of it doesn't get actually recycled. We need to be battling the systems, the like 9 billionaires that have whatever percentage. But what you are calling for, you're not saying you're a bad person because you want to put your kids through college. That's not what we're saying. We're not saying that you need to go as individuals or as churches and change the system. What you are calling for, what I hear you calling for, is this mindset shift. So it reminds me of we have solar panels on our house, and Nick and I argue over whether we dry our clothing on the rack or with the dryer. And so for me, I like drying the towels in the dryer because then they're soft. And Nick's like, well, do you know how much energy the dryer uses? And I was like, well, no, I don't. But also I want soft towels. And so what I'm realizing is, and so I'm like, well, we have solar panels, so it's okay to use more energy because it's coming from the sun. And what I'm realizing is that mindset is extractive. It's saying the energy is for me to use. Again, doesn't make me a bad person to want soft towels. It's just it's the posture with which we relate to resources, if you will, that this is for me to use, benefit from. Do you have thoughts there, or can I kind of ask a dovetail question about that?
Well, I would say I think we are calling the church and individuals to change laws and policies and systems.
Okay, say more.
Well, I mean, that's been the whole focus of the coalition since we've been in existence, of what are the laws and policies that need to change that are actively oppressing and holding down and taking the land from indigenous peoples. And the fact that those laws and policies are reflective of this extractive colonizing logic that's actually that is actually coming for all of us, is a way I would put it. So it's a both and. I mean, yes, there's a mindset behind it that has to be confronted. But I actually believe, I'll just be honest for myself, I'll be really honest. I don't sweat whether I'm drying my towels or not. I sweat whether I'm actively involved in undoing laws and policies that oppress indigenous people. And that also, I think I see it as oppressing me. I don't actually sweat my individual actions as much as I used to. Just to be really honest, I don't. I'm like, in the end, I feel like if I want to put my energy towards how do I actually work at this systemic level. Now, having said that, I'm not casting any shade on you, Mariah. I'm saying I just don't think that way anymore. One time in my life I did. And I just don't see it as actually where I want to place my energy. I don't actually see it as where real change is going to happen.
Okay, so
Yep.
there is a benefit to individual action, and can we put our energy and resources towards systemic action? And can we also shift how we interact with creation? Is that?
I think it's all of a piece. I mean, I see myself as like the individual action for me is about how do I live in integrity.
Okay.
I don't fool myself into thinking that the fact that I drive an electric vehicle, which I do, I got it used, I will say, and that was a conscious choice. The fact that I drive an electric vehicle, I don't have any, I know that that doesn't matter. It really doesn't. I think the one little piece that might matter is that the more people drive electric cars, the more, I guess, but I think electric cars are a problem, to be really honest. They are actually, they actually consume more energy and resources in their making than internal combustion engines. So there's a reality about electric cars that we have to really look at. So I would much rather see us have really good public transportation than have all of us owning electric cars. But no, we're going for the individualistic, let's all own our electric cars, no matter the fact that we probably don't even have enough minerals in the ground to actually produce all these electric cars for the entire world. Not to mention the enormous amounts of extraction that are going to need to happen to build all those electric cars. And the fact that 80 or 85% of the minerals needed to power the green economy, meaning to build our electric cars, our solar panels, etc., are located on or near indigenous lands. In the race to make the green, to basically live the way we live right now, just switch it to green stuff. Do you think in the race to do that, are we going to be, oh, well, it's just another form of colonization that's happening with the minerals race, with the green electric, with the green energy revolution. It's another form of colonization. And if we don't intercept it and call it what it is, it's just going to happen all over. It is happening all over again.
Yeah. So, and thank you, Sheri. I so appreciate that. And thank you, Mariah. I'm with Sheri. I'm okay with fluffy towels. Like that's not,
I'm gonna
you know what I'm saying?
I'm gonna go tell Nick and be like, well, Sarah and Sheri told me that I can have fluffy towel. No.
Wait, that's, you have to work out within your own family how integrity works.
She's like, I'm not responsible for your marital disputes. Don't put me in the middle.
But the amount of consumption is so big and so ingrained. What happens at the individual level is we get engaged. I'm not saying this about you, Mariah, at all. Please don't hear me saying that. But we get engaged in this micro level virtue signaling. And that becomes our contribution to the movement. Look how virtuous I am. I wash all of my dishes in 2 inches of cold water. So what if that's actually going to lead to death and disease within my own household? Because I am virtuous, I refuse to use hot water or whatever. Different households do it in different ways. And that is symbolic. And listeners, I'm so sorry to be rude about this. No one is watching you. It's okay to wash your dishes in hot water. Virtue signaling at home is a strange practice. It's a particularly Mennonite practice. I really don't understand it. Anyway, although I am a Mennonite, so the green economy, people are like, oh yeah, we're doing the just green transition now. Let's get all behind that. How about we actually ask, or maybe I should say demand from our leaders in this country, a real just transition. And let me throw a few examples out there. No cars. No cars, my friend. No cars. We don't need cars. Cars and freeways have absolutely created and reinforced racial segregation. We don't believe, Sheri, and I don't remember the numbers, you probably do. We don't even have enough resources to create enough cement to carry on with freeways. How about no cars? How about a national transit system with a few cars locally to get people to train stations? That's a collectivist solution. That's like a real solution. How about we don't need electricity on tap 24 hours a day? Forget choosing the towels or not. How about you only have electricity in your home 4 hours a day? That's a solution. That's an actual solution at the collective level. Do you see where I'm getting? But we're straining over whether I wash my dishes in hot water. And I mean, that's like not helping friends. We have to start imagining something else. We have to start imagining a society that does not depend on growth of 2 to 3% every year, because that system says reality is if we want a just green economy, we have to continue to support the lifestyle we already have. That's crazy. We can't do it. There is not enough resources on this earth to do that. And we are consuming the bodies and lives of unborn generations to do it.
This visioning is what excites me. Can we imagine a different world? And I don't think it's so, like you were saying, there are people already living this way. There are people already. So can you take us into this like decolonized vision? What would a world with living into big R reality, living into this vision look like?
I mean, it's almost hard for me to answer that in the sense that I feel like I am still so within a sort of framework that can't almost see it. I'm saying this for me. I helped write this book, and I still am like, how do we get from? I mean, what is that vision? That vision is justice. That vision is equitable sharing across the world. That vision is living sustainably with the earth as opposed to plundering and figuring it out later. It is, I see it and I see glimmers of it. There's this idea about I do see it when I look at a lot of the ways that different indigenous societies live and have lived. I see a little bit of it, honestly, in my own sort of ancestors and in my own sort of cousins, the Amish. I'm not saying they're perfect, but here's a group of people who are actually been living with very real limits on their consumption and the way they live because they're favoring community. They're favoring other values over growth and over, I would say, capitalist values. So there are people that, and I'm constantly, permaculture is a whole field of thought that is trying to design new systems that are more that are more just and fair and sustainable in that real way. So I guess I'd say I see it, there's lots of initiatives out there where people are experimenting with living in different ways collectively. And I see it when people are doing what we're doing in the coalition, which is opposing and resisting laws and policies that are literally killing people and killing the most vulnerable people and saying no to that. So I think there's two movements. There's the resisting and saying no. And then there's also the living into a new world, but at a collectivist systemic level. I think when we advocate for public transit over electric cars, we are starting to live into that new world. So that's just my first glimmers of that. I mean, it was when you ask the question, I can see it. I know it when I see it happening. And I can't give you like the beautiful one sentence description of what it would look like, if that makes sense.
Let me give it a shot.
Yes, I was hoping you would come and save me.
It's not going to be beautiful or one sentence, but I'll do some processing here. So our system right now is based on, that is to say, when I say our system, I mean our entire society, our culture, laws, policies, reality, our little r reality is based on a platform that favors the interests of the economy above every other thing.
Right.
Everything has to be rooted in the economy. And the economic system that we are a part of now is capitalism. Capitalism, if you read Adam Smith, and I don't expect you to, the whole idea of capitalism that Adam Smith did not create, obviously, but talked about academically, probably for the first time. And a lot of work is based on his work. He says capitalism is a system designed where individuals seeking their own self-interest and profit will lead to wealth for the whole society, right? So the unit is the individual, and the outcome is wealth. So this is a system that's created where the unit is the individual and the outcome is wealth. Wealth for individuals. Our entire system is designed to create that structure so that individuals can seek wealth, their own best interest, without barrier. There are some barriers, but very few in a capitalist society. So that's the basis of our little r reality. So when we say, well, just be realistic, that's what we're talking about. Indigenous people do not live with that. That's not the cosmology. It doesn't create that. So this is where we're saying, hey, we have to listen to Indigenous thought leaders because their cosmology enables them to think beyond this bubble of profit for individuals. So when we're imagining a new system, that is to say, the basis of a system, collective life together, what would that be? And so, and we know Indigenous people have been doing it for a long time. So if you were to ask me, Sarah Augustine, and I'm not saying follow me, I don't know, but if you were to ask me, I would say I would like a society where the unit is communities, not individuals. The unit is communities, and the outcome is not wealth, but well-being.
Yes.
What would our society be like if our purpose was community well-being? That's the system I would like to see and grow into. But because we are raised and assimilated into capitalism, it's all we can see. It's the water we're swimming in if we're fish, right? We don't really know how to imagine something else. But there are humans in this world who know how to imagine something else. And those are Indigenous communities who are still living in their own society, even though settler colonialism over the top has caused us to believe this myth that they are gone, that Indigenous people are gone, and the only thing that's left is empire. There are Indigenous communities who do exist, who are living in this same land at the same time with a different society. And it's time to now ask Indigenous thought leaders, let us imagine a system that is rooted in something else other than profit for individuals. Profit for individuals is really good. Capitalist system is so good at doing what it was designed to do, which is to create wealth. It's super good at that, if that's your aim. Here's what this system does: nothing to preserve the environment, to increase air quality, to preserve water, to conserve soils. It's not designed to do that.
In
So
fact,
trying to get that done within a capitalist society is a stupid endeavor. You can't do it. It's not designed to do that. Sorry, Sheri, to interrupt you. Go ahead.
No, I interrupted you. Go for it.
I'm done.
No, I mean, gross domestic product is what we fixate on. How much are we, and how much are we, is that increasing year by year by year? You know, when when Hurricane Katrina hit and obliterated New Orleans, gross domestic product rose in that area because all of the rebuilding that had to happen. Like, capitalism doesn't care if you're growing because of disasters that happened and then you have to rebuild afterwards. Capitalism doesn't actually measure the well-being of communities. There has been a movements afoot to measure something called the Human Happiness Index, I think. There's a movement afoot to measure different things, but we're measuring how much individual wealth, how much growth there has been, and the amounts of goods and services, consumed, which is what GDP measures. Therefore, the amount of wealth that's being created. It's a certain one definition of wealth, right? It's a definition of wealth that fixates on money, but it actually doesn't talk about other measures of well-being that I would say are actually true wealth. How is the literal health of the people in the society? How is the communal well-being? Do people trust each other? Are people feeling satisfied and fulfilled in their lives? Do they have meaning? Is there are things being shared equitably? All of the corrosiveness and divisiveness we're seeing in our society is growing as a result of growing inequality. Capitalism, our way we measure things in our economy can't measure that corrosive effect that's happening.
I want to give an example, Mariah, and I hope you don't mind. Do you mind if I just give a quick
Please.
example? Okay. So, are you familiar with the Dawes Act? Your listeners may not be familiar with the Dawes Act. This is the Allotment Act. It happened in 1885. So, the federal government here in the United States said, we have to get these Native American people. Keep in mind, by 1885, most Indigenous people are on reservations. But they're still, this is what the federal authorities say, they're still not acting like civilized people. So we're going to create an allotment act and break up all the land and force Indigenous people to have private property. Why? This is what the thinkers who are writing, by the way, I'm not making this up. This is all in writing. These are historical documents that say, look, Indigenous people, even though they're poor, even though we put them on the worst land, they continue to share everything in common. They're not going into debt because they are concerned about each other's well-being. And the basis of civilization is selfishness. So in order to force Indigenous people to favor selfishness, you have to break them up and put them on individual plots of land so they will be forced to compete against each other. That's the Allotment Act, 1885, which took reservations and forced the collective land into small parcels. So each Indigenous family would have to live separate from every other. So there are Indigenous peoples today in this country, in the United States, who have rejected that and continue to share in common on their reservations. That is based in a cosmology that is fundamentally different from the dominant culture, the hegemony of the dominant culture. So on the reservation where I've lived for 18 years in the Yakama Nation, the homeland of the Confederated Bands and Tribes of the Yakama Nation, there's a college, and I told you I taught there for a number of years, and there was this thinking of the provost that provost voiced at one time, which is said, this is a poor place. We have to give the Native kids here the opportunity to leave. The goal is to get them out of this horrible, sort of resource forsaken place, so they could go and have a good life. And the Indigenous people there, and I can't speak for them all, but many don't want to leave. It's their home. Completely reject the values of the dominant culture, reject that. And so people who come in from the dominant culture to the reservation say, oh, look, this place is so poor, it's so dirty, look at all the poor people. The people there are like, wow, we're living on our own homeland. We're sharing things in common. Generosity is the most cherished value among the Yakama. If you run into a Yakama friend and you say, wow, what a beautiful scarf, I love your scarf, they are duty bound to take it off and give it to you. It now belongs to you, because within that culture cosmology, the understanding is that whatever I hold in my hands is mine just for a moment. It's passing through my life. As long as I'm mortal, I know there's no such thing as ownership. The greatest privilege I can have is to give things away. My demonstration of wealth is the amount that I can give away. And the goal is to die with nothing, because the idea of owning stuff is counter to the entire worldview. So no wonder people from the dominant culture go there and believe, oh, look at this horrible place. It's like, it's living by a different logic. So we can say Indigenous thought leaders who are following the cosmology of their people, living in a different reality, truly. That's those thought leaders and that cosmology. That's the vision of how we could live together in peace and justice.
Yeah. So I see a shift, maybe a decolonized view of wealth, that instead of like a dragon sitting on all of her jewels or whatever, it's kind of this open hand posture that I don't what I have, I don't own. Like, and you were talking about like cutting up land into property that gives us a sense of ownership over the land, over the soil, versus viewing wealth as soil that is rich in its microbiome, or what you talked about it in the book, is rich, and that kind of view of wealth, that wealth is determined by how healthy is our community. But we have property lines, and we have our own cars. That's my car, versus, like, if we say no cars, then and viewing wealth within units versus like communal. This is kind of the shift that I see you calling us to. Did I summarize that accurately?
I love that. I love all the things you said, Mariah. And I also, I agree with Sheri. It's like we're looking through a glass darkly. And we are waiting with expectancy, and we are actively moving towards a reality that does not yet exist. This emergent reality. We are living into a system that does not yet exist. But I think we can actively do that by partnering with Indigenous systems thinkers who may be able to help us see beyond the darkness to something else. It's so hard when you're living in a paradigm to imagine anything else.
And if that is not the most like Christian philosophy, theology, I don't know what is. Like, for me, that is, and you said it in the book, that is like kingdom thinking. That is what God is calling us to, inviting us into now, as it is in heaven. All things in common, that, and you talked about how, like, for God so loved the world. That's like, for God, we think, for God so loved me. No, for God so loved the cosmos. Like, that's the Greek word, like all of creation.
That's what, and Mariah, I really see this for myself as this continuous process of conversion. Like, and I love this poem by Antonio Machado, that somewhere in it he says, "There is no way, we make the way by walking it." We can't give you the 10-point plan for how to get there. I don't even know if I'm seeing it clearly, because I feel like my imagination has been so colonized by the present system. So I feel glimmers of it, and I see shimmers of it. And almost all the time when I am talking to an Indigenous person who is still rooted in their cosmology, I'm like, okay, there it is. There it is. There it is. And for me, it's this continuous process of being converted, and that happens at the individual level. So yes, even though I told you I don't focus that much on individual level actions, I do make changes just to be in that integrity, to walk that, because I am being converted. And my imagination is being converted. And as I work and try to build this movement to to resist the polluting of the bodies and lands of Indigenous people, which is also polluting, honestly, my body and land also. I feel like I'm being that converts me. Like, all of these things they are converting me. I am in the process of continuous conversion. So it's a road we are making by walking it together. I don't know if that makes sense, but I feel like there's it's just it's being on that journey and allowing myself to be converted, honestly, by Sarah. I mean, Sarah, you're going to be embarrassed by me saying this, but you have converted me in so many ways, and you continuously do, with your words and with your actions and with the way you live. And you are one among many who are converting me. So I guess it's just like, let's be on that journey together, and I want to listen to those who are still are more rooted in reality than I am, because I know that even with all of that I have been doing, I still have this colonized imagination. I need to listen to those who are rooted in reality, more rooted in it than I am. And I don't know where that's going to lead me personally. And at some level, I have even stopped thinking of me personally as I've become more converted. It just feels like, wow, I get to be a part of creation. Sarah years ago said to me, the beauty of doing this work is you said something to me like, I get to be a part of creation. I get to be a part of the co-creation of the world that is coming, but I get to be in the river of life is the way I think you put it to me. And I don't know how to say this other than as a poet and a human being, I knew exactly what you meant. And it's like, the more and more I have done this work with you, the more I feel like I am in the river of life. And so I don't know. Maybe I just feel like I am entering more and more into that river of life with you, Sarah, and with others, and that I am a part of the processes of creation, and that's my ongoing conversion. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I love that. And I'm thinking, I'm trying to remember what I said. Who knows what I said? But I mean, sort of the way I think about it myself, a colonized person, an Indigenous colonized person, I think about how, we are in our movement and calling others to follow the spirit of life that is the embodiment of a creation that's unfolding. It's not done in 7 days. It's a creation that is continuously unfolding, and we get to be part of it. We get to be part of that in relationship with the spirit of life. And that's all I want to do. I was created to want to do that. And that's all I want to do. And I think about how in our society, in the culture that I was raised in, it's like, I'm not going to sign up for anything unless I know how it's going to turn out. I feel entitled to that. I need to know what's going to happen and how it's going to turn out. And that's the antithesis to everything that Jesus taught us. Jesus said, you don't even need more than one coat. Just take the garment that you're wearing right now. Right? Like, it's the opposite of accumulation or storing up security, right? Jesus was demonstrating to us how to live in a different way. And I think about, as a parent, I've been blessed to be able to be a parent of three amazing people, and one that I actually had the privilege of birthing. And I imagine what it would be like if I had said, well, I will agree to birth this child if I know for sure how that's going to go. And I'd like to have a picture of what they're going to look like as an adult. And I want to know for sure, what they're going to be like, and, what their ultimate job will be, and, so on. That's like, I mean, who, when we get involved in relationship, and all of this is a process of relationship, we don't know where it's going to go. That's what relationship is. We're influencing each other as we go along. And that's what parenthood is. And that's what marriage is. That's what friendship is. That's what building a relational world is. We don't know how it's going to turn out, but we can commit to love, and we can commit to each other, relationship. We can commit to integrity. We can commit to following the call of the great animator who calls us into this work, and we can lean into that work together, and comfort each other, and support each other as we live with the consequences of that. And that's Sheri has been my partner in that all these years. And thank God for you, Sheri. You're my model. Sheri is like, she's, I often say, I've sat with elders all these years, as an Indigenous woman, to learn how to be a human being. That's my work when I'm sitting with elders, is learning how to be a human being. And I've learned so much from you, Sheri, about how to be a human being. Mariah, you might have noticed I can be sharp and sarcastic, and Sheri never is. She's just kind all the time. I'm learning so much from
I can be sharp and sarcastic too, but never on tape.
You won't catch me. You won't catch me.
I'm already regretting like 3 or 4 things I've said during this. Dear,
I don't regret any of it. I mean, I am not you, but as you were talking, I was like, well, that's because there is part of me that's like, Sarah and Sheri, tell us how to fix it. What is the 10-step plan? I want the 10-step plan. And I think, Sarah, I think you just said it. Our 10-step plan is learning how to be a human being and learning how to choose life and live as part of creation. And I'm like, all right. I mean, I kind of almost want to like title this episode Decolonizing Our Imagination or something like that, or Decolonizing Wealth and Imagination, because that's kind of what I hear coming from both of you. And I love how like 50, this is an exaggeration, 50% of this conversation is you two just gushing about each other. That's really great.
Maybe the word is holistic decolonization, because I feel like it's like all of us. It's like, yes, our imagination, but I also feel like it's decolonizing. It's everything. It's laws, policies, the way I interact with my garden, my imagination. I don't know. It's like holistic decolonization. It's really kind of, it changes everything. And it's really of what does it mean to be in alignment with the spirit of life and where the spirit of life calls us. And to me, that is like, I finally understand what Jesus meant when he said, come and see, follow me. Like, you're not going to get my 10-point plan, but we are living together into this new vision of what it means to be human. In our case, it's not a new vision, it's an old vision also, I want to say. Maybe the perennial vision. Sarah, you were about to say something.
Well, yeah, I was just thinking about how one of the things that Christians have a tendency to do, especially Christians in the dominant culture in our church as we see it today, is that we want to come in and work with Indigenous peoples and lead the way, because we like 10-point plans. And I think about Jesus, our model, well, my model, Jesus, my model, who came and said, this is the way, and then left and said, I trust you guys to work this out.
I sent the spirit.
Yeah, exactly.
You got each other. You got the spirit. Go.
So just using the manna metaphor that Sheri's used many times, you can't gather manna into baskets and store it up. It's here for the day. You get to have it today.
Well, would it be okay if I end us with a blessing? Yeah. Sarah and Sheri and all of you baddies out there, this conversation feels unfinished, and maybe that is life. That the goal is the way is made by walking. May we step into a desire to become more alive, to become more in alignment with our values and integrity, to be at one with creation, and to go and live, choose life. Amen.
Oh my gosh, amen. Thank you, Mariah. That was really beautiful.
Thank you both for coming on. That's all for this episode of Called to Be Bad. Keep being your bad, beautiful selves, and I will see you next time.